Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'll be flipping this smaller dresser that I got off of Facebook Marketplace for free. The build and the design of it is a bit outdated. It's also pretty banged up and has so many layers of paint. This piece was painted everywhere, including the inside of the drawers, which is something I typically don't do. This flip has an insane before and after though, and I bet it'll make you question if it's the same piece or not. Now, before we get started, if you like this type of content, please make sure to subscribe as it really does help small channels like mine grow. Also give this video a thumbs up because it'll tell the algorithm to push it out to more people. Now, back to the makeover. Because there was so much paint, the very first thing I wanted to do was grab a lead testing kit. I found this one at Menards for $12, but I'll also leave a link in my description box if you need one. Lead paint was used in the 1970s and was banned in the United States because it was deemed toxic. So if this is lead paint, I can't sand it back as I typically would, and I have to dispose of the paint particles properly. I've never used one of these lead testing kits before, but the directions were very easy to follow. This kit in particular came with two testers. Each tester had an A and a B side, and both were to be squeezed and broken down. And then from there, you wanted to shake it with the cotton side down to activate it. You'll see that like orange liquid substance. And after that substance starts coming out, apply it to a section of the furniture that you are concerned about the lead paint. You can see I did scrape down a little area just so that I could make sure I had all of the layers of paint exposed, seeing as this piece has definitely been painted more than once. Now, after about 30 seconds, if the tip isn't a bright red and instead it's kind of like an orange like mine is, then you are good to move forward as you would with any other furniture flip. Now, the hardware needed to come off and it needed to stay off because along with everything else that was painted, the hardware was too, which I really don't like when it's painted. I like spray paint, but paint, that's a no for me. The reason why is because now this paint was chipping, so this hardware is no longer any good. Along with that, the screws were giving me a hard time, so I ended up pulling out my drill to get them out. As I was doing this, I was also pulling the drawers out to make it easier for the next step. I really wanted to get this backboard off, and my initial idea was to just hammer it out, but Avery thought it would be better to take the backing off so we could look underneath and see what was really holding it on. And this was actually a really good idea that he had because there were some pretty big screws holding it in that I wouldn't have thought, and I would have just tried to hammer straight through. Unfortunately, those screws were partially blocked though, so we couldn't get to it with the drill, but Avery had another great idea, which was to use the multi-tool to cut out just enough to have access to those screws, and to my surprise, that actually did work without disrupting the structure of the piece of furniture. So he just did this process a few more times until all of the screws were out. And just like that, it came off so easily. We didn't even have to try. All we had to do was put the backing right back on, and it was as if it never even happened. Now for the part I dreaded the most, which was sanding all of this paint back. And you may be asking me why I'm not stripping it back or why I'm not using a scraper, and my answer is this. all are time consuming, no matter which option I choose, and all are messy. So really, the real question should be is which method can I tolerate the most? And it happens to be sanding. Luckily, Avery was willing to be so hands-on with this project that I had 2 sanders. He had the palm sander and I had the circular sander, and we just went at it for at least a few hours. Obviously, we didn't finish this project in one day. That would be just near impossible. But he helped for as much and as long as he could. And then my brother showed up, so we just took a break for the rest of the day.
What time is it? I said you weren't gonna be here till like 4.
Then it was the next day, and it was just me, myself, and I, and realistically, I probably spent another whole 8 to 10 hours sanding this piece back down to raw wood, but in the end, it was so totally worth it. Even here, you can just see how much better it looks without any of the paint on it. I am going to be using these rags here to just wipe off and wipe back all of the dust from sanding and any paint dust that is left on there, because I want to make sure all of that is off before I put anything new on here. I did dampen the rags because it'll help pick up the dust more, but make sure if you do dampen it to wait for the wood to dry before you do anything else. Finally, once it's all wiped off, it's time to ask myself, what am I going to be doing to this piece? And well, I'm going to be putting paint on it. And I know that sounds crazy and insane after everything I just did to get all of the paint off, but I promise this is going to look great because we are going to be doing a paint wash with this paint called Algonquin from Fusion Mineral Paints. I've done this before recently and I absolutely love how it looks. It's a beautiful neutral color, and it's really just going to act as a stain because we will be watering it down so much. So you'll still be able to see all of the wood grain, but it's going to bring out this really, really pretty color. Anytime I do a paint wash, I don't really measure anything. I just find the consistency that I like, and after you do it a few times, you'll kind of get the idea pretty quick, like what consistency works the best. As you can see, I'm using the same rags to apply the paint wash. I'm using one rag to put it on, and then I'm using another rag to wipe the excess back. It's super important that you do wipe the excess back so that it is thin enough so that you can see the wood grain and it really acts as that stain that you want it to. I really like using these rags because it doesn't leave anything behind like paper towels do, and it really does just wipe it on the surface so smoothly and evenly that it looks like a stain and not a paint. This project may have turned out to be one of my best before and after transformations, and this project took a long time. At this point, it was much more of a passion project and an idea that I had in my head than trying to profit and make money off of it, because this piece is small, and although the end is beautiful, there's no way I'm gonna get all the money for it. But at the end of the day, I absolutely love how it turned out, and this may be one of my most proudest projects yet. As the paint wash was drying, I wanted to get started and get going on the new hardware. I got this hardware from Menards for like $2.50 or something. I've used this hardware pretty often recently just because I really love how it looks after I do what I do to it. I want it on this cardboard so that I can spray paint it gold. I think that spray painting this hardware gold just really makes it pop. For top coat, I'm using polyacrylic in the finish clear flat. I'm using my favorite method to apply it, which is using a grout sponge. It makes for a flawless finish with no brush strokes or anything like that. It just looks absolutely perfect. I started with the top and then I went from there. You could only see me applying one coat, but I actually did do 3 coats because I really wanted to make sure that all that I had done would be protected. It would be such a bummer to have it scratched up or something along those lines after all of the time that I've spent. So I made sure to really go above and beyond in protecting this piece. I didn't end up sanding the inside of the drawers because that would have taken so much more time, but I did paint them in a neutral color. This color is called Oat Bran. I suggest trying to avoid painting inside the drawers though, unless something like this happens. Now let's go ahead and get into the final reveal.
Try to make it new. You can't fight it when it feels so true. You drive me crazy like no one else.